5. Carl Jung versus Freud, the battle of the unconscious. In the previous segment, I discussed how early psychologists carried out their experiments with animals to understand why they behave the way they do or how to condition animals' behavior. Later on, the experiments were conducted on humans, and the results were the same, that humans too are subject to environmental learning. This approach, pioneered by Ivan Pavlov in Russia but became widely popular in the United States, became known as behaviorism. While behaviorism was an established scientific approach to psychology, in the German-speaking world there was this feeling that lab science truly couldn't explain everything. The human mind was far more mysterious or sophisticated than experiments and labs can truly understand. So this led to another approach in psychology which became known as psychoanalysis, which has its roots in German structuralism of Wilhelm Wundt, who is considered the father of modern psychology. Instead of relying on behavior, psychoanalysis focused on understanding consciousness through two methods. First, they looked at mental illness and asked why the mind gets sick. Second, they looked at dreams and asked why we dream. This led the early psychoanalysts to the conclusion that consciousness is more complex than we can see or understand. There has to be another level to consciousness which is not readily available to us. This became known as the subconscious or unconscious. Two of the most important psychoanalysts were the Austrian Sigmund Freud and the Swiss Carl Jung. So in this section, I'll discuss their approaches to psychology, their similarities and differences in the battle of the unconscious. While the previous generations of psychologists studied psychology in the lab through experimental psychology, some psychotherapists were in the fields dealing with people with mental problems. So their study was not based on lab experiments on animals or humans, but approached psychology through field observation. At the time, behaviorism was the dominant approach in psychology, to which studies were based on experiments. However, around this time, a new approach to psychology emerged from the field: mental asylums, hospitals, and psychiatry clinics, where psychologists observed their patients and discovered the existence and the power of the subconscious. One of the earliest pioneers of psychoanalysis was the French doctor Pierre Janet, who is credited to having both influenced Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung. However, when it comes to establishing psychoanalysis, it's Freud and Jung who stand out. Sigmund Freud, often called the father of psychoanalysis, and the Swiss Carl Jung agreed that the unconscious is perhaps a more powerful part of the consciousness. Despite their similarity in focusing on the unconscious as the best source of understanding the human mind, they also had a few differences.